Making the headlines during the past week, Dominica lost one of its cultural icons as Sonia Lloyd passed away last weekend. 6-month extension to obtain a new e-passport and 10 years, 8 months prison sentence for man convicted of murdering his friend. I'm Krishna Joseph with the details of the news in review when we return.
DBS Radio now brings to you professional and quality live streaming services for all your funerals, special occasions, and events. Contact us today at 448-3282 or 448-3283 or email us at dbsradio@cwdom.dm. DBS Radio, your new era in broadcasting. Contact us today.
Welcome back. Dominica lost one of its cultural icons with the passing of Sonia Lloyd. She passed away last weekend, and former Chief Cultural Officer Raymond Lawrence described the late Sonia Lloyd, a former teacher and composer of many beloved Dominican folk songs, as a true cultural icon. He said her work in the area of the preservation of the Creole language should not go unnoticed.
She was a true cultural icon and an outstanding folklorist and cultural personality. She had a great passion and love for Dominica's culture, especially folk music and our beautiful Creole wear. Sonia was a very prolific composer of Dominican folk songs, and she won the Independence Creole Song Competition on more than one occasion. And one year she won with a song which has become one of Dominica's cultural anthems, Kite Kolte la Vive. Sonia Lloyd taught at St. Martin's Primary School for a number of years, and while there she formed a Creole song group of school children, and they won the Independence Creole Song Group competition a number of times.
Minister for National Security and Home Affairs Reuben Blackmore announced a 6-month extension to obtain the new e-Dominica passport last Tuesday from the August 31, 2022 deadline.
Having considered the number of issues and being mindful of the challenges that we all are fully aware of, as well as requests from you, the Dominican public, for additional time for applying for the new e-passport, your government has decided to extend the deadline for transitioning from the merchant readable passport to the new e-passport to December 31st, 2022. This is a further 6 months extension. Let me add further that this is intended to be the final extension.
Since being launched on July 26, 2021, 31,347 e-passports have been printed and issued to date. Blackmore said the mobile unit, which went to St. Martin, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, processed a total of 597 e-passport applications. A 3-member tribunal to facilitate the implementation of the Electronic Communications EC Bill will be established in Dominica. The tribunal will deal with consumers' disputes and claims of the telecommunications sector. Director of Telecommunications Bennett Thomas told DBS Talking Point last week that people serving on that tribunal should be trained professionals.
There will be a chairperson, and that person must be a legal practitioner of at least 10 years or more standing. The 2 other members of the commission of the tribunal will have at least 10 years training or experience in more than one of the following subject areas: finance and economics, that is very critical when dealing with the sector; ICT, of course; spectrum management, meaning your frequencies and so forth; competition, then you have public relations and regulation.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC, Craig Nesty, said the NTRC is seeking to establish an informal complaint process in which Dominicans can file complaints on telecommunication providers.
People complain a lot, but they complain on the radio stations, they complain on Facebook, they complain on many other avenues besides following the official complaint process, which requires you putting a complaint down on a prescribed legal form. So what we've been trying to advocate for at the NTRC is having sort of like an informal complaint process, which the FCC has seen merit in having, because they recognize that not every complainant wants or desires to go through this formal complaint.
The United Workers' Party suffered a major setback in 10 election petitions taken to the Caribbean Court of Justice. The UWP contended that the elections of 2019 were plagued with election offences, breaches of election laws and other irregularities. However, Justice Ralston Glasgow struck out the petitions. The UWP then made an application for leave to appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Senior Counsel Anthony Astafan said the judgment of the CCJ last Tuesday put the petitions to rest.
There was no evidence and no determination of the evidence or the validity of the evidence or the credibility of the allegations or the truthfulness of the allegations, either by the High Court judge, either by the Court of Appeal or the CCJ. In fact, I think the High Court judge would have proceeded on the presumption that the allegations were true, but that they were not sufficient to set aside the result of the election, and that as far as he was concerned, the allegations in the petitions were wholly inadequate. And the CCJ made it absolutely clear that the judge was clearly within his competence to make that decision. So the effect of the judge's decision and that of the CCJ is that the petitions were struck out on the basis there was insufficiency in the pleadings, lack of proper particulars, and no cause of action disclosed in the petition. So I think overall we are quite happy with the decision.
And Attorney General Levi Peter said the judgment was what he expected from the CCJ.
I mean, the parties who brought the petitions were legally entitled to do so. That's part of our process. All of our courts, right up to the apex court, the CCJ, have adjudicated on the matter, and they have ruled in favor of the respondents in those matters, and that is at an end. That brings an end to the election saga of 2019. We move forward to the next election whenever that is called, and we do hope that and expect that by the next election there will be changes by way of some of the reforms that have been looked into, and hopefully we will not have a repeat of this saga which has happened in virtually every election, I think, from probably about 2005 or thereabouts.
Meantime, the attorney who led the UWP election petitions at the Caribbean Court of Justice, Zahida James, said while the petitions failed to go further in court, her team is satisfied about statements made by the Caribbean Court of Justice on the conduct of elections in Dominica.
I think I've heard others use the expression that we lost on our application to go back to the Court of Appeal so we could get out to the High Court and have a full trial on all of the issues. We did lose with that aspect of our application. But what we won, I think what we won instead is a safeguard or some form of safeguard that we didn't have before for our democracy in Dominica. But the crux of the issue is that we lost not on the merits of our argument that the elections were not fair, but that the fact that the court's hands were tied because of certain factors of the Constitution and the way it's currently constituted. That is why we lost. But when you look at what the judgment actually says, what they took the time to say about our elections, those comments tells you how they feel about how the elections were conducted in Dominica. And the fact that they did not give cause on an application that they struck out speaks volumes.
And in news from the courts, 31-year-old Chester Seraphin of Good Hope has been sentenced to 10 years, 8 months in jail for the murder of his cousin and friend Engelbert Laura in 2019. DBS's news editor Curtis Matthew has more.
Evidence in court showed that on the night of March 10, 2018, the two men entered a bar in the village and were having a very good time. They were dancing and drinking, but very soon after, things turned very sour. They began arguing over the payment of drinks. The argument turned ugly as a fight ensued. The deceased pulled out a pen and the accused used a piece of wood to inflict serious injuries on his friend, which resulted in his death. High Court Judge Wynand Adrian Roberts described the murder as senseless. She said, what goes against the accused is that the incident took place in the view of villagers and that the deceased's face was so badly injured that there was no public viewing. She said, however, the accused who pleaded guilty assisted the police in their investigation, and he was not the aggressor on the night of the incident, and he has shown remorse throughout. The deceased sister, Yvette Laura, spoke to reporters outside the court.
It's the brutal manner in which my brother was murdered. The fact that they were so very close. They were very, very close friends and even distant cousins, you know. So, I expected a greater sentence. With everything that's happening right now and the increase in the number of murder cases we are seeing, and the murders that we are seeing, I think that it does not send a strong message, you know, to persons who think that it is okay to brutally murder somebody and for something so small, you understand? I don't think we are sending a strong message out there, you know, and I thought that the court would have used this case as an example.
Curtis Matthew at the High Court for the DBS News in Review.
A former president of the National Youth Council of Dominica called for the establishment of a sex offenders registry for the island. Delroy Williams made the call during a panel discussion on protecting the youth, putting an end to child sexual abuse at the UWI Open Campus last Thursday. The event was organized by the National Youth Council of Dominica, UWI Open Campus, and the Girl Guides Association of Dominica.
That registry is not just a directory of names and faces, but should be something that is dynamic. We track the person's whereabouts, the employment, and there should be tiers of the term is not coming to me. Tiers of access, to the registry. So positions like the principals of schools, church leaders, and so have certain levels of access. The police have greater access, and welfare division and so forth. But definitely, a sex offenders registry will allow us to arm ourselves against silent killers in our community.
Newly appointed Executive Director of the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities, Ernica Esprit, called for more employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Esprit took over from Natalie Murphy, who served the association for over 19 years as Executive Director. Esprit told DBS News among her immediate plans is to get members to play an active role in the association.
People with disabilities, they just have a disability. That doesn't mean they cannot do work or anything. So people with disabilities can work to earn a sustainable living for themselves and their families. And my immediate plans I have for CAPD is to get in touch with the members, to build up the membership and to make the members play an active role in their association, because it is not my association, it is not the board's association, it is their association.
We now join Leila Langford for this evening's entertainment segment. Leila.
Can you tell us more about the band, the Ecstasy Band?
Ecstasy is a band originated from Pedit 7. Well, after Erica, we relocated to Bellevue Chopin, so now we are basically from Bellevue Chopin, but originally from Pedit 7. We are in existence for about over 10 years. There is about 10 members. As you see, Ecstasy is a fully acoustic band. We concentrate on compa music and sort of zouk. Before, when Ecstasy started, we were like a versatile band. We used to play everything. But after listening to the fans and the patrons, they were like, okay, boss, everybody playing soca, everybody playing bouillon, do something different. So we chose the compa music, and from then, that's what we have been doing. Compa.
Oh, wow. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that you all are back on the stage. How are fans responding?
Well, from our first event after the pandemic, the pandemic is still there, so we're still advising persons to take all precaution and follow all protocols. That was the first event at Classify. That was a bomb. And from that, it has been up and up and up. Every event, it becomes better. Every event becomes better. The fan base has grown, the musicians has matured more, and I think we understand the music more, the concept of compa music. So the performances, it has been enhanced tremendously. And We're not only saying that because I am in the band. That is because of reviews from our fans, from the past jams, from Classify to Vickers to Sufuye, and then here, you saw for yourself.
Yes, I did, for sure. Can you tell us what next for Ecstasy Band?
What is really next for Ecstasy is our debut album. That's what we are working on now. So we don't have a date for release, but we are working on our debut album. And in that album, trust me, you're going to find a lot of collabs from the different compa bands from Haiti, whoever is in the United States. But we have collabs. So that is one of the biggest things to look out for from Ecstasy Band, the album.
That's all for us on this evening's DBS News in Review. For more news, log on to our website, www.dbcradio.net. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On behalf of the entire DBS team, I'm Christina Joseph. Good evening.
DBS Radio now brings to you professional and quality live streaming services for all your funerals, special occasions, and events. Contact us today at 448-3282 or 448-3283 or email us at dbsradio@cwdom.dm. DBS Radio, your new era in broadcasting. Contact us today.